What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new commentary video. As always, before this video gets started, I quickly do want to mention that there is a link to submit your own question for these videos down in the description via a Google form link, or if you would like, you can leave it in the comments or shoot it to me on social media. I do not care. But without further ado, let's hop straight into today's video. So let's go ahead and read this question. Something that I've struggled with my entire life is making decisions. I'm the most indecisive person that I know. And every single day in my life, this is a problem. This ranges from basic, indecisive decisions like what to eat for dinner that night, or major life-changing decisions. I find that with nearly every single decision, I overthink all the pros and cons of said decision. I feel as though I'm holding me back from reaching my full potential, because instead of doing things to propel me in life, I overthink and stay stagnant. I've still made a significant amount of progress, and I'm relatively satisfied with my current position, but I have a constant guilty feeling that I am not reaching my full potential, and I fear that I will only become worse as I grow older. I believe that if I stop overthinking and stop being indecisive, I will gain control of my life and reach my full potential, but I don't know what to do with this. Please help. So I also at times have an issue with making decisions. And like you, I do it with all types of different types of decisions. It doesn't matter if it's literally what do I want to eat tonight. It's really big stuff that revolves around the channel, stuff that revolves around my career, all that type of shit. So I totally understand where you're coming from. Now, I want to point out one thing that you mentioned. You talk about how the pros and cons kind of stress you out. It doesn't really help. And you kind of like spend too much time focusing on it. So a lot of people do this thing where they will weigh the pros and cons, but they weigh it out in their mind. I don't want you to weigh it out in your mind. I literally want you to write down the pros and cons in a notepad. That is one of the biggest tools that has helped me is literally writing them down in a notepad. And the reason for this is because I find it easier is if I'm able to visualize the pros and cons. A lot of people can't really visualize that in their head, and that's part of their issue, is that they are trying to figure out a solution. They're trying to come up with what they think is the best decision, but they can't do that because they're simply imagining the solutions in their mind. They're not actually writing it down and physically seeing what that could change. So that's what I want to tell you to do, is start doing that, carrying around a little notepad with you or a scratch paper or whatever it is if you need it for your daily life. And then the next piece of advice that I want to give you that I used to really help me get over tough decision making is don't be afraid to make the wrong decision when it comes to the small things. So a lot of people have this thing where they're scared of failure. They're scared that they're going to make the wrong choice. They're scared that they're going to literally come up with a solution or choose something that is going to impact their life severely. And that can happen sometimes. But for a lot of people, they're scared of the failure. And one of the best pieces of advice that I can give you for that is to start small and just decide, hey, look, I am going to go ahead and take a risk on the small decisions by making the wrong decision. Now, what I mean by this, let's say, just for the dinner example, let's say you were debating between Wingstop and Burger King. I don't know why you would choose Burger King, but that's the bad choice here, right? Let's just say you choose Burger King and maybe you wanted Wingstop. A lot of people will spend hours dwelling on which one they really want deep down. Instead, I just kind of want you to pick one. And I know that sounds really difficult, but it's something super small that you can do. Literally, or even if you are scared about that, go ahead and pick a menu item, right? Pick something that is so inconsequential to your life that it doesn't matter what decision you make. And the reason why we want to do this is because we want to train our brain into thinking that it's okay to make the wrong decision sometimes. And it's going to train it to not panic when you have to make a decision, right? Because it is scary to make a decision, whether if that's to get a new job, whether if that's to break up with your current girlfriend, whether if that's to switch apartments, it doesn't matter. It's all stressful and it all is so scary, right? But guess what? It becomes easier when you have to make daily decisions. And that's really important, is being able to practice making decisions. The more small decisions that you can make throughout your day or your life or your week, your month, however you want to measure it, the easier it becomes to make the tough decisions. Another little pro tip is unironically, play the Telltale games. Now, the Telltale games are games that are all about decision making. You're going to have to make tough decisions constantly, and it's a good way to practice how to work through that in life. And I'll tell you what, man, playing through some of those games have truthfully helped me. Like, unironically, I remember playing one in particular when I was in high school, around the time I left Subway. And unironically, that game helped me make my decision. Like, I'm not even trolling, just kind of practicing, going through the motions of making decisions makes your brain more used to it. You know, I've talked about the resilience of the human brain and how just trying things makes it easier. It's about getting over that first hump. And that's the truth, is that you need to get out there and you need to make your first decision. And as scary as it is at times, is once you make that first decision, is it becomes easier. And it got easier for me. And at times it's still difficult. And honestly, I think it's also a good idea to maybe get people involved in your life. Ask them what decision they think is best for you. And every once in a while, that's helpful for people too. Sometimes it's helpful to decide, hey, mom, what do you think about this decision, right? And don't let them go, oh, I think it's up to you, or, oh, I don't care either way. I want them to let you pick an option, right? I don't want them to be indecisive also and be like, well, either option's good with me. Like, let's say you're having a conversation with your girlfriend and she says, hey, do you want Chinese? And you say, well, maybe, how about Mexican? And she's like, I'm okay with either, but I want you to pick. I want you to fire back at her until you know I'm working through these decisions here. I want you to pick, right? In this scenario, just because this way you are going to see that, hey, it's not that scary to make decisions. And either way, both decisions are good in the end, right? That's what we're leaning towards, is that we don't want it to be, oh, one decision is good, one decision is bad. That's what your brain is doing, is your brain is telling you there's only good and bad outcome. And that's part of the issue here, is that not every single situation in your life is going to have a good or bad outcome, right? There's no such thing as an A or B situation all the time in our lives. And I think that a lot of people get hung up on this. They think, oh, well, if I make the wrong decision, my life is over. If I make the wrong decision, people are going to hate me. In most situations in your life, when you have to make a call like this, it's not like that, actually. It's kind of the opposite. Most times, most decisions will have little to no impact on your life. And I think that a lot of people get hung up on that. And, you know, there are, of course, decisions that are going to be tough, life decisions, right? And those are going to take more time. But I think that the more you practice working on the small decisions, the better you get at it, right? Like, let's say you are trying to decide a big thing like changing jobs or something like that, right? That is something that is massive. That is something that is very, like, tough and a really hard call to make. What it really takes is that it's just going to take some time and sleep on it. That's the other thing. Don't be afraid to sleep on your decisions. A lot of people think that they have to make a decision right then and there. You don't have to. You don't have to. And a little pro tip that I've always used when it comes to making decisions is I close my eyes and I kind of say the situations in my head or the decisions in my head. And whatever one really pops in my head first is the one that I go with. So, like, you know, I use it with my partner all the time. We'll be sitting there trying to debate what we want for dinner. And, you know, they'll say something like, you want Chinese or Mexican? I close my eyes and whatever one literally pops in my brain first is the one that we're going with. And that's just what I think is a lot of people aren't doing with their small decisions, is finding a way that works for them. And you know, I think that's really important. And I also think that trying to visualize your decisions are really important too. Are you able to visualize it in a way that makes sense to you, where you can sort of see both outcomes at once? That is something that is super duper important, is making sure that you're able to visualize it in some way. Like I mentioned, with the piece of paper, with the notebook, with the scratch paper, it does not matter how you do it, but you need to be able to visualize the decisions in some way so that you can help actually weigh out the pros and cons of the true situation. And this way it makes it easier and easier and easier to conquer those bigger decisions, right? Is that it's scary to go through decisions. It truly is. But if you take some time and actually discover, hey, I actually have this decision in my brain, this is the one that popped up first, go for that one. There's a reason why your brain gave you that decision. It's because your brain knows what you want, but your heart is telling you something else. And I really think that people need to stop, like, just dwelling on, well, what if I make the wrong decision? This is so inconsequential. We're not talking about the big stuff. We're talking about the little stuff. Because once you work on the small stuff, you can do the bigger stuff without even needing to think. You can just decide what's the better option for you. And that's what's so great about sort of like working through deciding decisions, is that the more you do it, the better that you get at it. You know, and that's really anything in life, like I've talked about, is that there's really no set answer for anything. There's really no set deadline for anything. And that's what's so great about the human brain and life in general, is that you can kind of decide those metrics for yourself, your own sort of way to determine what's going to go on in your life, how you want to handle things, and how you want to handle these issues. But anyways, man, I hope that I helped, and I hope that you take some of this advice today, because, you know, decisions are scary, but I know that you can do it. They're tricky at times, but you got this, brother. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, there is a link to submit a question via the Google form down in the description. There's also a link to join our Discord if you're interested. I would really appreciate it if you did. But anyways, guys, thank you for making it to the end of the video, and I will see you on Saturday. See ya!